Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is OJ, and on today's episode I want to teach you guys how to make this wrap top with a bell sleeve. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe. If you are new to this channel, this is a channel I drop sewing content. Please do well to subscribe, like, comment and share my post. Thank you very much. Let's get right into the video. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be making use of a silk fabric. This silk fabric is in a shade of nude. Yeah, it's a type of shade of nude, so that is what I'm going to be using for this tutorial. So the first thing I did was to fold my fabric. Of course, there's not going to be a pattern for this drafting. I'm just going to be drafting directly on my fabric. So the first thing I did is to fold my fabric, then measure out my my point, which is my shoulder line, my bust line, my waistline, that is then the length of my top, where I want my top to be. If you want the top to be below your waistline, then you have to add to the waistline. But if you want it to be at your waistline, which is like a proper crop top, then you have to make it get to that point. So here I was measuring, I was making sure the fabric will be enough for the top, because I'm going to be cutting the back first. There is no drama at the back, it is just the regular measurement and cutting for a regular top. So right now I'm marking out my shoulder line, my bust line, my waistline. My waistline is 15.5. Then I proceeded to add 3 to 4 inches to it. I think I in total I make use of 19 inches. Then I added 1 more inch for stitching, which is ½ inch at the shoulder and ½ inch at the hem line. After marking out my point, the first thing I went ahead to do is to mark out my shoulder length. My shoulder is 14, then I mark out 7.5 because my fabric is on fold. Then from there I measured my bust divided by 4, which is 9 inches. Then I added 1 inch for stitching allowance, that is on my chest line. Then from there I measured on my waistline. I divided my waist measurement into 4, which is about 7 inches. Then I added 1 inch stitching allowance. Then the next thing I did was to connect them together. So after connecting my bust to my waist, the next thing I need to do is my neck measurement. So my neck width is 3 inches, while my neck depth is 1.5. That is just the basic measurement for the back neckline for a proper blouse. So then for my armhole, I went ahead to cuff it out. Remember, I'm cutting for the back, so I just shape it out properly. Then I went in by 1 inch for my shoulder slant. Then the next thing I did is to cut it out. That is basically everything you need for your back measurement. So for my front pattern, I folded my fabric into 2. Then I arrange my back pattern on it. So I put it towards the back because I want excess fabric in the front. So the excess fabric you are going to put at the front depends on how much fabric you have. Then I just went ahead to cut out the side, the length, the sides, and the shoulder. But before marking the shoulder, I marked out my neck point, my shoulder point, because that's going to serve as a guideline for my front neckline. So for this pattern, I think I left about 6 inches fabric at the front, excess at the front. Then I measured 7 inches, that's going to be my neck depth, that's what I just marked out. Then at the base where my belt is going to be, I went up by 4 inches. I'm going to be using half inches to fold the fabric, half to fold the fabric at both ends, then 3 inches for my belt. So from my neck point, I connected to where my from my shoulder point, I connected to the neck depth, then down to my 4 inches point with a freehand curve. Then I just cut it out. This is, if you really don't understand what I just explained, please look at the video. This process is very easy. So for the sleeve, remember I said this process is going to be a freehand process. So I have folded my sleeve into two. I'm going to be cutting one sleeve first. So I measured about 27 inches length, 25 inches for my length, for my sleeve length, 1 inch for the casing, and 1 inch for stitching. So at the upper part, I went ahead to make an armhole curve for the sleeve, and at the base I use about 12 inches, 1 inch for stitching, and I'll have about 23 inches for my excess. So I went ahead to cut it out. At the armhole too, I'm going to be having excess because I want to have pleats at the shoulder area. So that is exactly what I went ahead to do there. In some cases, you might decide not to have excesses at your shoulder, so you just cut out your exact measurement. So right now, I have cut out the other sleeve, and these are my patterns. So I'm going to start stitching. So right here, before I proceed with my stitching, I'm going to cut out facing for my my patterns. So I'm going to start with the back pattern. I cut out the shoulder. I just take a fabric and fold it into two, then cut out, then place it on it. That's the folded part on each other. Then cut out my shoulder and my neck pattern. Then I'm going to take off my main fabric, that's my main blouse, then measure about 3.5 inches round to give it that round shape at the base. So that's exactly what I'm doing right here. I measured 3.5 inches round, then I went ahead to cut it out. So I have my facing for the back. So I'm going to do the same thing for the front. So for my front, it's just basically like a straight line. I just kind of cut it on bias a bit for the two piece. So for this back, I went ahead to pin it down, then stitch it by 1/2 inch. Then after stitching, I went ahead to top stitch 2. Then I cut out the excesses that I might have. So right here, I'm going to do the same for the front. I'm going to sew it down and leave about 1 inch at the base where my belt is going to be, because I'm going to insert my belt before I finish it up. And please note that cutting facing for a wrap top is not necessary, it's not compulsory. You could fold it into two and just stitch it down, both for the back neckline and the front neckline. The main reason I'm I went ahead to use facing for this top is because I could not get exact thread to match this fabric. So to conceal my fabric, I went ahead to use facing. That way I'm not going to be having my stitches in front or at the right side of the fabric. So just to conceal it, you can see I'm just going to iron it down. After overlocking, I'm just going to iron it down with my M gum. Yeah, with my M gum. So right here I proceeded with the front, with the shoulder rather. So I'm sandwiching one of the shoulder in between the other. So I'm opening up my front shoulder, then I put in my back shoulder and just place it over it. Then I'm going to stitch it down by 1/2 inch for both shoulders. Then I'm going to stitch it down by 1 inch at the side too. After I was done stitching my shoulder, I cut out the excess that is in between because I don't want my shoulder to be bulky. Then I turn it out. I did the same for the other shoulder too, and my shoulder came out looking really nice. So the next thing I'm going to do is to pin down the sides. I went ahead to pin it down, then I stitch it down by 1 inch at both sides. So after that, the next thing I did was to stitch down the base of my blouse. That's the hem of my blouse. I went ahead to turn it over twice, then stitch it down. So that's basically what I'm doing right here. So after I was done with my top, the next thing I'm going to do is to work on my sleeve. So I already notched out my midpoint, then I marked out where I want my gathers to start from. Then I went ahead to give it a gather stitch and I pull it together. So I did the same for the second sleeve, and my gathers are looking really pretty. So after that, I'm going to put the two sides together and give it a 1 inch stitch for the two sleeve also, and that's exactly what I'm doing right there. And after that is to work on the casing. So for the casing, I'm going to fold the fabric into two and stitch it down. Then I'm going to create a small opening to pass my elastic band. I'm going to be making use of is the small elastic band here. I really don't think big elastic band will make this pretty, but the small elastic band is what I make use of here, and it's really nice. So I measured about 7 inches, then I pass it through the opening. After I was done with that, I picked out the 2 points, the 2 ends of my elastic band, then I stitch it down. So after I was done stitching, this is me just playing around with the sleeve, checking out if it fits. Then I close up the small opening that I left to pass my elastic band. So I'm going to do the exact same thing for my other sleeve. So after my sleeve was ready, the two sleeves were ready, the next thing for me now is to fix it to my dress, and you can see the sleeve is really looking nice. So after that, my gathers too were looking pretty. The next thing is to attach it to my dress. So at the midpoint where my gathers is, remember I notched out my gathers, so I was just looking for the midpoint here. So at the midpoint where I notched, I'm going to be placing it on my shoulder because that is where it's going to be. I'm doing this because I don't want I want my gathers to be equal on each side of the shoulder point. So I'm going to be pinning it around. I'm going to be pinning the sleeve around to make a good fit. Then I'm going to be stitching it down. I'm going to go ahead to do the same for the other sleeve too. After I was done with the first sleeve, it was really looking pretty. Guys, look at that gathers. So I went ahead to fix the second sleeve. So after that, at my base where I left a 4 inches space, remember I've already joined it by half of an inch at the hem line and half of an inch for the turning. So I have 3 inches left. So for my belt, I cut a belt of about 6.5 inches. So while I fold it into 2, I have about 3 inches apart from the stitching allowance. So at the base of my belt, I measured 4 inches inward. Then I connected it diagonally just to give it that cute little shape at the mouth of my belt. So the length of this belt is about 1 yard, that's 36 inches. If you want it longer, that is totally up to you. There is no particular size for the belt. So I went ahead to turn it back outside to the right side. Remember, stitching of your belt should be at the wrong side. So you turn it back out to the right side and poke out the end point so that it will have a good nice shape. Then you will go ahead to iron it down. So right now I'm going to be fixing it to my space for the belt. So I went ahead to stitch it down, to pin it down before stitching, just to check if it fits my 3 inches, and it really fits perfectly. It fits my 3 inches space perfectly. So I'm going to be turning the facing for the front over it. So after stitching it down, I'm going to be turning it back out. So the end point of my belt will be inside the facing. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but if you do not, please watch what I'm doing carefully. You can watch that process multiple times before you understand. So I'm just going to stitch it down, then turn it back outside. So after completing this process, I'm going to be doing the same for the other side of the belt. And you can see, guys, that I conceal my belt very carefully, and that is all for this top. This is my top looking so pretty. The versatility of this top is what made me love it so much, and you can use any type of fabric to sew this top. If you've watched up to this point, thank you very much for stopping by. Kindly give my videos a thumbs up, turn on post notifications so that you can get a notification when I drop videos. Comment. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please kindly go ahead and do so. See you up in my next video. Bye bye.